In the next excerpt, Diane talks about West conning money out of people and the whole charade of Flathead Lake, which was Miss West's move from Victor, Montana, after the government shut down her charity because her and her husband, Jack West, were defrauding it, to Shambhala, which was an imaginary place West was talking about setting up in Lakeside, Montana. Miss West was obviously conning as much money out of as many people as she could, and as Diane says, it's all a charade, and it turned out to be exactly that, because when Miss West left Victor, Montana, she ended up stealing the property from the charity and putting it in a trust fund for her and her son, Rob Meador. She also stole all the artwork and valuables, estimated at probably $4 million value in that time frame, and hid them in a lock-up garage, only to sell them at auction 10 years later in Arizona. But during her time in Lakeside, Montana, which Diane is talking about now, Miss West ended up being the recipient of 2 arrest warrants, one for felony theft and one for criminal check fraud, ended up being convicted for assault, ended up the subject of a sheriff's sale to force her to pay $2 million in judgments and interest to her creditors, and ended up being the defendant in multiple fraud-related lawsuits. This is clearly not a guru. This is a con artist criminal. And the people around her, the senior members of her cult, Reynolds, Williams, and Jack West, know this, and yet they still promote her, market her in the community where this parasite is now embedded, which is Arizona, as a guru, hoping that the local populace will fall for this bullshit and end up victims of theft, fraud, extortion, and perhaps violent assault.
If I were to ask you what is the most damning thing that she's done or is doing, and you can choose whatever perspective you like, whatever frame you want for that question, let's say breaking the law, for instance, what would you be able to come up with something?
Well, I think there's so many things that she does that I don't really like, but I think this whole charade about Flathead Lake and the Eagle's Rest, or Shambhala as she calls it, I think that really makes me sick to my stomach, that she's pushing people to give her money to buy this $13 million property so that she can just live in the style that she wants to.
Sure.
And she sees herself as having all the spiritual leaders just meeting there. You know, and the extremes that she goes to promote that, to get money out of these people, it really makes me sick.
Mm. Do you think that she's an excellent con artist? Is that what it's...
I don't know if I'd say excellent. I mean, she didn't fool me, so and usually good con artists would fool people, but I guess she's fooling them, and that's all that counts. You know, she's fooling the people she wants to get the money out of.
In the next excerpt, Diane relates how Miss West, receiving a little bit of resistance about taking her cult up to Lakeside, Montana, or what she calls Shambhala, writes to each of the people on her mailing list and says that she's channeling the Christ, and that if you don't believe her, you don't believe in the Christ. Well, as far as I know, the Christ wasn't the subject of arrest warrants, wasn't the subject of a conviction for assault, wasn't involved in multiple lawsuits for fraud-related matters, and wasn't abusive. In fact, quite the opposite. The Christ did everything he could to uplift people, not beat them down. But this lunatic who went through the Robert Jaffe School of Energy Mastery in 90 and 91, who also declared herself as an ascended master after completing that course, believes that she is on a par with the Christ.
Well,
Really?
this is what really makes me sick, is that she claims that she is channeling Christ's teachings. And I've seen it in emails and letters that she's written to her followers. She has said that if you don't believe me in what I'm telling you about Shambhala, because a lot of people questioned her about that move, they thought it was a bad idea.
Yes.
And she wrote them and said, you know, if you question me, you question Christ. If you don't believe me, you don't believe Christ. And
Yes.
to me, that is really low.
Extreme.
Very extreme.
Diane refers to a creepy moment with Miss West where they were in the kitchen and Devra West, looked over at Diane's necklace and in a very creepy way said, "Oh, I love beautiful things." And that's what it's all about with her. It's all about money. And she's deceiving people and demanding money from them. And it's clear that if she has a god, it is money. It is certainly not Jesus or what we would regard as a deity. She has an obsession with money, and as Diane points out, she is mentally ill, and unfortunately you have a mentally disturbed person, psychopathic personality, who, because of her knowledge of the occult, is quite capable, without any remorse or conscience at all, injuring people, harming them, causing them extreme pain, and even murdering them, and not losing a moment's sleep about it either.
To me, Devra, when she came back from Israel, she kept saying she hadn't slept and she hadn't been sleeping, and she seemed very manic to me, and I have experience with manic depression, but we were standing in the kitchen before she had to go out into her session, and she leans over and grabs my necklace in her fingers, and she had this very weird look on her face, and she said, "I love beautiful things." And it just creeped me out. You know, it was the way she said it, how she said it. She said that before, but it was just in that moment, it really made me sick, because I think it's all about her having beautiful things.
Yes.
And that's what it's really about. And also I think she does have a mental illness, and that's why she thinks she is this goddess that she thinks she is. And she needs help.
Yes. Yeah, agreed.
But yet then there's this other side that is just a con artist.
Sure.
And very much aware of what she's doing.
And yes, she does need help, but first of all, I think she needs taking off the street
Oh,
so she
God,
can't damage
yeah.
any other
I mean, she's
people.
just taking money from people and demanding it. And demanding that they show up at these events and pay to stay at the Quest House, and you know, I mean, and they do it.
In the next excerpt, Diane is asked what her wish would be of Devra West going forward, and Diane says that she should be shut down. She also goes on to say that before she took the job, Devra West was writing to her about how she was helping the monasteries, but when she got there and was working with Devra West, she was not giving anything to charities at all. She was keeping it all for herself. And John Watson, the whistleblower, cuts in and says that Devra West told him that she should take a third of everything coming in. Diane comes back and says, "Oh, I would think she's taking more than that. This is a thief, a con artist, a fraudster, an extortionist. This is not a guru. It's all about the money."
Yeah.
So what would you, if you had your wish now regarding Devra West, what would be the
I
solution?
think she should be shut down. She shouldn't. You know, I mean, she's basically stealing people's money and using it in her personal way, not for any charities. I don't see any. You know, when she hired me, she kept telling me, bragging about how she was helping this monastery over in Tibet and this children's school here in Victor and, you know, this and that. And I never saw any of that. I never saw any charity she was doing for anybody but herself.
Yeah, that was my experience as I got to know her well. And then one day she just came out of the blue and said, the masters have told me I've got to have a third of everything coming into this place, a third of the contributions, everything.
Oh, I would think she would be taking more than that.
That was the beginning.
Yeah, you know, I mean, she'll take as much as she can.
In the next excerpt, Diane talks about how Miss West missed her flight to Israel because she was shopping for a $2,000 pearl necklace that the charity ended up paying for. Of course, the charity didn't really have any money other than the money that was donated by the public. So, again, it speaks to the fact that Miss West is just a crook, a thief, a fraudster, and an extortionist who has managed to set up in the United States of America a little fiefdom where normal laws do not apply, where the people inside her cult are not citizens of the U.S. or subject to U.S. laws, but subject to Miss West's laws, as though they had all been transported back to medieval times and the evil baron could do what they wanted with the serfs under their control.
She's constantly shopping. You know, I mean, before she went to Israel, she was late for the plane, and then they wouldn't let her board it because she was buying a $2,000 necklace in the airport.
Oh, and
when we told her, when supposedly Cheryl told her there wasn't that much money.
In Divine Unity's
account. Right. But she put it on the credit card.
Wow.
You know, why she needed that $2,000 necklace.
Mm-hmm.
And then because she was late for the plane, she had to reschedule everything to get her to Israel. And which was perfect because she ended up screwing herself and showing up a day late and almost didn't make that important bank appointment meeting. And she had to go shop for clothes because, of course, her luggage never made it.
Oh, fantastic.
You know, and I went through a lot of pain to make that flight, all those schedules and all those, the way she wanted it, and then she blew it all for a necklace.
Mm-hmm.
This is the end of my YouTube video 27B. To continue with this material, please move to 27C. And please be sure to like my video and please help me make them go viral. Thank you.